Oh, I feel naked. I don't have my headsets on. Hey, by the way, you're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. This is going to be kind of our first podcast episode, and you might be used to listening us to on our weekly radio show that we've been doing for about 15 years plus now. I think, even going back to doing that was crazy. I just remember when we started doing the radio show, we weren't in this world of streaming and recording and it being going across online. And now we're doing a version of which is the podcast that will be repurposed to the radio show. It's kind of crazy how things evolve, and everything was live then, so there wasn't recording or repurposing now. And of course, you can catch us on our YouTube channel as well. If you're new to this, I am in the financial services business and essentially been in this my adult life. Gosh, that goes way back. I was being questioned earlier about what motivated me about money, and even if you go look at my book, Retirement Deserves a Helpful Hand, it talks about that early in the book, and kind of when I was young, I had two interests: cars and compound interest, and then somebody asked me, so what? Usually for young guys, they would kind of mention women as well in that. And I said, yeah, I had that interest, but cars, you needed money. And so that was an interest. I had my first car when I was 14. I couldn't drive, but I had that car. And then there was another one I picked up, an old Chevy 2 Nova, and I couldn't drive because I didn't have a driver's license, but technically, yeah, I did drive some. But what I also found out, which was interesting to me at that time, people were offering money for my two cars that I had that I couldn't drive anywhere unless mom was with me or somebody, and just learning to drive around the neighborhood. And I ended up selling both of those cars. I don't know why I did it. I shouldn't have sold either of them, but I did. Now, if I had it all to do over again, I'd never sell a car ever. But then I would run out of storage space real quick. So, and I heard this phrase recently. Somebody said, "I don't have a car problem. I have a storage problem." Well, as a 14-year-old, yeah, I kind of had a driveway problem as well. Uncle Truett had passed, and I had, for a couple $100, I bought his Chevrolet Biscayne, 6-cylinder automatic car, 2 doors, pretty cool. I should have kept it, but I was offered money and made money on it. So that was kind of like, because I'm interested in money, so I make money from that. So that was kind of an early thing as well. And of course, compounding of money was really a fascination. Oh, back to the women thing is like, well, I didn't need money to have a date. I needed money to have a car. So that was kind of a big obstacle back then. But some of the people are curious, like, how did you get into financial services business? And I kind of connect it to having an interest in compounding of money, because that is the magical thing, especially when you can do it tax free and have it compounding the wealth that you could build using Roth IRAs. But we'll save that for another episode upcoming. But more so about what got me into this business, that backstory. We always have something profound that happens in our lives. And, when I was in college, my dad died in an offshore accident. The thing I really remember is coming home one day and the phone was ringing. You know, you may not realize this, but there was a time before we had cell phones and stuff with us all the time. But came on, phone's ringing, I answered it, and Susan said, "Where you been? I've been trying to reach you all day." And I was, "Well, at school." And she said, "Dad died." It was an offshore accident where he had was a crane operator and out in the Gulf of Mexico. And previous to that, he did that over in the North Sea. So it turns out those kind of are some dangerous jobs and environments. But that day, as I later learned, he went to pull some equipment off the barge below. So when they locked into that, tightened up to pull it, the rivets that were holding the crane onto the deck broke loose, and it catapulted him out of the crane that day. And so it kind of affected the family financially and created some changes. And I was being interviewed on a TV show in Southern California a number of years later, and kind of asked me what impacted me in the financial services business. And to tell you the truth, it was the death of my dad that I did not realize that until much later. And that's how it affected Mom's finances and changed the direct trajectory of the family. And she came into money and was parted from her money. And we actually kind of have a timeline of that. I don't know that I have that kind of time on the podcast today, but lawsuits ensued. She reached a settlement. One of the stories I always tell about that is she talked with my sisters and I about the settlement. She says they're offering this money. They're offering a income over the remainder of her life and a lump sum as well. She could choose more of the lump sum and less of the payments for the rest of her life, or less lump sum, larger payments. And so I remember us having a dinner, and she kind of brought that subject out at a restaurant we were sitting at, and I just took it in and really didn't think much about it. But I remember going back to her later, a few weeks later, and just said, "Mom, it's really bothering me about that, and that decision you've got to make. I really think you should take the one that has larger payments for the rest of your life." And then I did that again a couple weeks later. And which do you think she chose? Folks that know my mom kind of know what she would have chosen. You know what I would have chosen? I'd have taken larger payments over time. No, she took the larger lump sum payment, and which turned out to not be the right decision for her, because she became dependent solely upon those monthly payments about 10 years out when she had went through the money. And that was kind of the timeline. That lump sum lasted her about 10 years. She didn't make good decisions with that. And that's one reason when we're talking about retirement planning, it's really important to consider the income. You can build up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for retirement. But what is the income stream that you're going to have? What can it support? Because that's ultimately your lifestyle of what does it cost you to live every month. So everything becomes a monthly income. And that's what we have to think about. And then the other part of that is you can have a lump sum that supports monthly income over time, but at what point will it be depleted? Because are you taking more income than it's generating in growth of that account? And you could even go to what's the interest it's growing at, or stock market. And we can't look at one or the other. I think it takes a combination of the two things, the two arenas where you've got fixed interest rates and you could have financial tools that have fixed returns. But you're also probably, if you want more growth over time, you should have the market in that. Do we have clients that have just the fixed interest that are really concerned, like, oh no, I don't want market risk? Yeah, we do that. But a lot of clients, we have that mixture in. But with that said, are you going to deplete it over time, which would cause the income to run out? And I think that's a very important part of it, because I remember in that interview at the Southern California studios number of years back that led to this, kind of like, what was your foundation of it? And what I realized, how I look at money is, where are we going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out? If that's going the right way, and it's kind of like, if I'm doing a financial plan for somebody, and I've done a lot of these over the years, but kind of what I naturally go to is, if we've got this together, where are we in 10 years? Remember, mom ran out of money in 10 years. So 10 years is really important to me. Is this going the right way in 10 years, or is something wrong here? Because I look at the 10 years, then I want to go back and look at the 5. I know where we are today as far as the starting, but where are we in 10 years? I want to go back, look at the 5. Then I want to go out to 30 years and see, where does this look like at 30 years? And subject to what your age is, then I want to go look at, in the 90s, age 100, and you're going to think this is crazy, but where are we at, say, 105, 110? Why? If you got money at 110, you don't have anything to ever worry about. We start running low on money in the 90s, well, that's kind of a concern. But also in retirement planning, I think we also got to have the ability on the back end of life, and I'll call it, to burn through money. Why? You might be the second to die in your household, meaning your spouse has already left. This could be male or female, but traditionally it's the female that's the second. And are we running out of money? And then, are we going to have money to take care of the extra care we're needing help with? Because our spouse is gone. We don't have that help. So I want to make sure, what kind of cushion do we have there? And that's kind of the impact right there. All that in a nutshell is kind of the impact of dad dying in an offshore accident. But it is the importance of planning in a nutshell right there, of making good early decisions, the right decisions. And if you don't, you may need to change course. It's also why you should work with a financial advisor. You need a sounding board. You need somebody you can trust to bounce ideas off of and be comfortable. Like, even if you're wrong or your ideas might be dumb, and nobody should tell you that, but you might internally think, well, they might think I'm dumb if I ask this or whatever, and you shouldn't. But you need somebody to be comfortable with, to have those discussions and make sure you're on the right path and make the right decisions on income planning and creating tax efficiency, and what are your long-term goals from that. And if this is going to go awry, and that's what I always kind of spoke with people about. I asked them, if this isn't going to go well, when would you want to find out? I'd kind of like, yesterday, pretty darn soon. In planning, that's why we want to look at how's this look in 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years out? Like, where is it going wrong? Well, then we got to come back to this starting point and make some adjustments. Or how are we going to improve that over time? What are we coming into later or what adjustments or creating more tax efficiency does that help us in the future? So it's kind of those things that we're always looking at. So that's kind of my basis for being a financial advisor. And then it started out just kind of me going into the business, and over time it evolved to me and an assistant. I remember the assistant said, well, we're going to get busier. This is going to turn into a full-time job. And they were kind of like, yeah, sure. And then not long had 3 employees and then 6. And then I remember about that time with that size staff being asked to do a live radio show. We evolved to, and they said, what do you mean? You don't have time for that. That's what I was told. And actually I said no. So we start with the compounding of interest, fascination in grade school, and then the like of cars, and then money's important because I like cars. I like compounding interest, and start thinking about that. And then in college, knowing that I want to go into the financial services direction is kind of where I want to be. But then having a basis of how you advise people, that happen in my life helped me to help people. And then I don't know, we might cover the more of how we evolved in the next podcast and how this story continues. But today we're operating, I don't know, I have 23, 24 employees, 3 offices, 1,000+ families that we help, and we add on new families every month, and we adjust our capabilities, and we have a behind the scenes support staff behind our crew that numbers in the hundreds of people that help us, and other financial professionals. And we have 4 frontline financial advisors, and we have several licensed advisors that support them to help take care of you. And what this has evolved into, my initial group of people that I hired when we got to 4, 5, 6 people, I kind of look at those as teams of people that we have now to help you with your financial services and to make good decisions. And we've kind of turned this into a family office, so to speak, where our focus is helping you, but also helping your children and helping your friends and extended family as well. And I think it's important to increase that circle. And if I kind of look at family history and all, I think that would have been a much better route for my family back then to go through, to have that help and that guidance from that standpoint. I'm not sure where we are on time for we've got a few more minutes. Oh, I've got about 5 more minutes to go there. And I have a lot of people comment about my story in my book here, and this backstory kind of goes in there. A lot of people are kind of fascinated about that. And another, our chief financial officer in the business, I get asked about that because people like the story about how Stacy came to be, and we were introduced by a friend, and I had asked her to have lunch with me because that's always the easy way to have a date. Hey, you got to eat, so let's have lunch together. So I kind of, and there's parts to this story, but she was probably disappointed when she saw me walking up at the restaurant when she first saw me there. I had cargo pants on, and I didn't see any problem with that. I kind of like cargo pants. And if you know my backstory, I was in the Army for a period of time, and the Army National Guard. And soldiers' pants were like cargo pants. They still are today. So I was kind of like, I always had something like that in my wardrobe. So I wore it that day. And yeah, she didn't like cargo pants. I didn't know I'd got off to the wrong foot right there. But we sat down, we had lunch. I ended up having to answer a business call, and she was impressed with kind of how I handled the call and such. And through our conversation, she was like, she kind of forgot about the cargo pants. But I did learn shortly thereafter to not wear cargo pants or even cargo shorts around her. And I was never a fan of cargo shorts, but I didn't have any of those. But the cargo pants was kind of a turnoff. But what was neat about that is she was very comfortable to talk to, was fascinated about my life as well. I was fascinated about hers, but she was really interested in the business aspect of what I had going on and where I wanted to go there. And I had big dreams, big goals, but hey, it was a long ways to go there. But what that lunch led to was another lunch and then another lunch. And I promise you, I didn't wear cargo pants ever again around there. And then once again, at some point, I never had cargo pants again whatsoever. But in telling this story, it is kind of about when I talk about folks working with us, kind of like, well, what's it like to become a client, or what does that look like? Well, we start with a first meeting, just like Stacy and I having a lunch date, and that lunch date went well, so we had another lunch date. So if you come into our office, it is a first meeting. There is no obligation to have a meeting again. But if the first meeting goes well, and we're going to do analysis and such and have stuff to talk about on the next meeting. Same reason you would want to go on a second date. Reason I wanted to go on a second date, I wanted to get Stacy to know me better because I wanted her to have reasons to keep wanting to have lunch with me. So that's the same thing. We're going to provide you information if you're coming for a first meeting and giving you reason to have a second meeting. And the way I look at it, when do we know we're working together? Well, if we keep having meetings, I guess we're working together. If we don't have meetings, we're not working together. It is actually that simple. It's not like you have to do something. At some point, we're going to be working together on some of your money, helping you with some of your accounts, maybe helping you with some Roth conversions, helping you with your 401k, helping you develop an income plan. You might be one of those that's kind of like, yeah, I'm thinking of retiring in a few years. Well, it's time to have that discussion. It's kind of like if you think you're going to sell your business, thinking, yeah, I started thinking about that. Well, then we need to talk. If you're thinking, well, I'm thinking of retiring in a few years, it's time to have that conversation. Oh, I'm like, I've left this job. I've got money at the old job. Well, you need to have a conversation with us. It's time to start thinking about, let's get that to work in the proper place, have some efficiencies. Just like dating. If it starts with one date and goes to a second, now you've had 5 lunches, gosh, that might be a regular thing going on there. Just think about it that way. If we had, I'm sure you've had a first date that didn't continue, or maybe you had 3 and it ended. You know, yeah, I had those in my past too. And that's okay from a financial advisor standpoint. Even if we have a couple meetings, kind of like, okay, we're not a fit. But you know, there is no pressure. And what I find is most people continue with meetings, and there's no pressure. Nobody's going to talk you into that. And it is about you. Are you getting value? Are you happy with this that's going forward, and your comfort level? And the thing that I do want to kind of end up here with on is talking about a team. I like you working with a team of people. And that's what we feel on support. Those 4 or 5 people that I had helping me early on in the business, that I've evolved to a lot of people. I like you to feel like you've got a team of people surrounding you. And when you get your recap email after your first meeting, you're going to see 5 or 6 people on that recap. That's only just a few of the people we have working with us, but you got a team of people connecting with you. And I think that can make you feel good about that. So it's not just one person. So many people are attached in this business to just one person. If that person gets sick, leaves the business, decides they want to do something, well, where are you? Or if they retire. So I've had this question over the years too. It's like, well, Greg, what does your retirement look like? I'm like, retire from what? I'm CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks Total Wealth. I'm like, I love this, and I love the people and helping and leading the team and impacting people's lives. I'm at the best I'm ever going. This is the best of me so far. The best of me is probably going to be better in the future, but why quit while I'm at my best? And we want to help you. And hopefully this story helps you a little bit along the journey. Maybe you're starting with listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks and the podcast version of this, and check us out on our YouTube channel. We got a tremendous amount of content there, and go to gregoryricks.com and check out the website and learn more about us. And if you've got anything that you want to reach out to, and hey, how about a copy of that book? Right here, reach out and ask. Retirement Deserves a Helpful Hand, and I'll probably give you a signed one copy as well. So hopefully we can get you started on the path. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode today.